Hello and good day. Welcome to Covenant Science Tutorial official YouTube channel, okay, for science students and other lovers of the sciences. All right, my name is Uncle Joshua or Tutor Joshua, and I'll be your biology instructor on this channel. Okay, on today's episode of the biology class, we're going to be looking at biology, okay, and at an introductory level. All right, let's go. Now, what is biology? Okay, first, I need to start by defining what science is. Science in itself is the study of nature and the things that happen in nature. Yes, the things that are around us, including natural things. Okay, there are various branches of science, and one of which is biology. Now, as a branch of science, what does biology study? It is simple. Biology is that branch of science that studies life. Okay? It is derived, it finds its origin or etymology from two Greek words which are bios and logos. Okay? The word bios simply means life, and the word logos simply means study. Okay, so with this, we can infer here that biology is simply the study of life. All right. Now, at this point, I'll need you to know that if a thing has life, it is described as a living thing. Anything that has life is said to be living. So, if biology is the study of life and things that possess life are living things, we can also say that biology is the study of living things. Okay? Now, living things are in two categories, the plants and the animals. Yes, these are the two main categories of living things, plants and animals. All right, we cannot classify, okay, or we cannot mention non-living things at this point because biology is not the study of non-living things. Non-living things like water, like air, like oxygen, okay. So plants and animals are the two categories of living things that exist. All right, now the part of biology or the branch of biology that studies plants is said to be botany. Okay, so we said if you are a living thing, it means that you have life. Okay, now a living thing has two categories, namely plants and secondly animals. Okay, and I mentioned, or I was going to mention at this point, that the branch of biology which studies plants is said to be botany, and the branch of biology which studies animals is said to be zoology. Okay, so these are the two main branches of biology, the study of plants and the study of animals, which are botany and zoology, respectively. All right. Now, for you to be considered a living thing, there must be certain features, characteristics, qualities, or attributes that you possess. Okay. Now, these attributes can be summed up in an acronym that I term Mr. Niger card. Okay. Now, there's a reason that I separated these from these with an hyphen, and I will explain. Okay. So, these are the qualities of living things. Okay. The M here stands for movement, The arrow here stands for respiration. The N here stands for nutrition. The I here stands for irritability. The G here stands for growth. The E stands for excretion. This arrow stands for reproduction. Okay, so let's get right to it. Firstly, for you to be considered a living thing, you must have the capacity to move. Yes. All right. Now, what is movement? Movement is simply the ability of a living thing to either move a part of their body, just like I'm moving my hand, okay, or move the entire body. All right. So you will find that both plants and animals can carry out movement. All right. But in addition to movement, plants, rather, animals can carry out what we call locomotion. Yes, animals can cover distances. Okay, so while plants and animals can both move, only animals can carry out locomotion. All right. Now, for the first arrow we have here, which is respiration. Okay, respiration simply means to respire. All right, and to respire simply means to release energy from the breakdown of food within the body. Yes. So respiration is different from breathing. In breathing, there is exchange of gases via two main processes known as inhalation and exhalation. Simply put, breathing in and breathing out. All right. So you should also note that breathing or exchange of gases takes place in a part of the body, an organ, specifically speaking, known as the lungs. All right. Now, there is an air sac present in the lung, which is called the alveoli. It is the site where respiration, rather gaseous exchange, occurs, not respiration. It is called the alveoli, and it is present in the lungs. It's an air sac. Okay? Now, respiration is of two types. We have what is called the aerobic respiration, which takes place in the presence of oxygen, and the anaerobic respiration. Are we there? Good. So, the first quality of a living thing is movement. The second quality of a living thing is respiration. The third quality of a living thing is what we call nutrition. Okay? So, to execute nutrition means that as a living organism, you can feed and utilize the materials or nutrients obtained from the food, okay, for bodily activities, for cellular activities. Yes. All right. Now, there are two types of nutrition. Okay, we have what is called the autotrophic nutrition. Yes, in the autotrophic nutrition, we have living things that can generate their own food. They have the ability to manufacture their own food, e.g., plants. All right, via a process known as photosynthesis. Yes. Okay. The second type of nutrition is known as the heterotrophic, which is also called holozoic nutrition. All right. So in the heterotrophic nutrition, all right, animals are mainly in this category. They do not produce their own food. Yes, but they depend on either the food produced by plants or they feed on other animals. Okay. Now you should know that if you are an animal who feeds on plants, which we call herbs or shrubs, you are described as a herbivore. Okay. While if you are an animal that feeds on flesh and blood, you are described as a carnivore. Also, if you are an animal that could feed on both, you are described as an omnivore. All right. Excellent. Now, the fourth quality of a living thing is known as irritability. The letter I, irritability, which is also called sensitivity. Now, in irritability, a living thing possesses the innate ability to receive what we call impulses or stimulus or messages, either internally or externally. And then these living things have the ability to interpret these messages, okay, and finally they can respond. So let's break that down again. In irritability, firstly, I have what it takes to receive the messages. Okay. Now, in receiving messages, living things make use of what we call sense organs. There's a reason they are called sense. Okay, sense organs. Yes, they are organs that help us intercept what we call sensations, which are messages, feelings, emotions, and whatnot. All right. So a living thing possesses sense organs, which it uses for sensitivity. An example of a sense organ is the skin. An example of a sense organ is the eyes, the ears, all right, the tongue, which is for taste. These are sense organs. Okay. Now, so the first stage of sensitivity or irritability, like we called it, is receiving messages. Don't forget, I said these messages can either be internal or external. Yes. Okay, for example, hunger is a message and it is internal. Yes. All right. That internal message, that stimulus called hunger, comes from within us, not outside us, comes from within. All right. But an example of an external stimulus, for example, is a gunshot. Yes, that's an external message. All right. Or taking a hot object close to the skin. For example, a hot pot, a hot cup of tea, a hot water, or even an electric iron. Bringing it in contact with the skin. That's an external stimulus. Okay. So whether internal or external, a living thing must have the ability or structures that help it intercept these messages. That's the first stage. The next stage is to interpret them. Yes, because I could send a message to you in a language that you do not understand. All right, and this is why, for example, in humans, we have what is called the brain. All right, not all animals possess brains or a well-developed nervous system. Okay, humans in particular, we do. So the part of our makeup that helps to interpret stimulus or stimuli in plural is the brain. So when a stimulus, whether internal or external, comes, the brain, via very quick or rapid neuropathic processes, tells us the meaning of the message. So we can know when we are hungry. Yes, your stomach releases some sound, and then your brain interprets, and then somehow you just know, I need to eat, I'm hungry. All right? That's a typical example of messages being interpreted by the brain. Okay? That's interpretation. Or if you hear a gunshot, all right, as soon as your ear, which is your sense organ for sound, picks the sound, your brain quickly interprets and tells you that, oh, that should be a gunshot or something exploded. All right, that's interpretation. Now, the last aspect of sensitivity is what we call your response. Yes, because there is no point being sensitive if there is no responsiveness. Okay, so after you intercept these messages or receive them, like we said, interpret them, you finally respond. So the moment I know, for example, it's a gunshot, my response could either be to run or to hide. I hope you get that. That's what we call irritability or responsiveness or sensitivity. So don't forget again that to carry out irritability, three phases or three stages are involved. First, you must have structures, which I call organs, that help you receive these messages. These messages can be in the form of sound, so you will need the ears. It can be in the form of sight, as in vision, pictures or videos, so you will need the eyes. It can be in the form of taste, flavors, all right, embedded within food, within meals, drugs, or even drinks, okay? So you are going to need what we call the tongue. Yes, it can be in the form of pain, heat, all right? So you are going to need the skin. Do you get that now? Yes, so you will need organs to receive these messages. And then the brain, which is the main organ in the nervous system, helps us interpret these messages quickly. Do not forget that. And then these messages that have been interpreted will now prompt a response within us. Okay? So do not forget that a stimulus can either be internal or external. Okay, please make sure you're taking notes or forming notes as needed. All right, now the next component or character of a living thing is growth, which is simply the irreversible increase in the size or the body mass of an organism. So plants can grow and animals equally can grow. All right, we have the letter E here, which stands for excretion. Okay, all living things must be able to remove waste products from their bodies. All right, so plants can excrete and animals can excrete. Okay, we have the letter R here, which stands for reproduction. As a living thing, you must be able to produce young ones that look like you. You must be able to produce after your kind, that is, after yourself. Okay, so in reproduction, there are two main types. All right, we have the sexual reproduction and the asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction usually involves two parents, all right, the male and the female. And in sexual reproduction, there is what we call fusion of gametes, all right. The male sex gametes, for example, in men, is something we call the spermatozoa. Yes, that's the male sex gamete. And then the female sex gamete is what we call the ovum, singular, plural is called ova. All right. Now, when there is a fusion of sperm and the ovum, okay, a fusion, yes, this occurs in sexual reproduction. When there's a fusion, then the organism starts to form, okay? The organism starts to form. Yes. So in the reproduction in man, you start to hear smaller forms of the organism in terms like zygote, embryo. All right. These came to be as a result of fusion of gametes. Okay. So that's reproduction. Plants can reproduce, animals can reproduce. Okay. Plants mainly reproduce by what we call vegetative propagation. And there are two main types of vegetative propagation. The first is known as natural, okay, which involves the use of seeds. Yes. So the use of seeds in most plants we know of. And then what we call the use of spores. Yes. Like in some plants that generate what we call spores. Their reproduction takes place or occurs via or by what we call spore formation, okay, also known as sporulation, sporulation. Okay, so for some of these plants that generate spores, the way the organism starts to emerge is that firstly, their spores are dispersed either by wind, okay, or by what we call explosive mechanism. All right. Also, animals could be involved in spore dispersal. Please take note of that. All right. Now, that being said, we also have what is called the artificial vegetative propagation, which involves certain agricultural practices such as marcotting, layering, and what we call grafting. All right. There are others. Now, moving on, these seven that I just mentioned are the basic characteristics of living things. All right. But for exam conditions, there are three others we have to talk about. The letter C here stands for competition. Okay. Now, living things compete for certain resources in their environment that are in limited supply. To compete means to contend. Yes, to contend, to drag, to struggle amongst, okay, themselves, all right, to struggle amongst one another for certain resources which they need for their basic metabolic processes, all right, and these resources are in limited supply. Examples of such resources include food, water, territory, and what we call mating partners. Yes. So living things compete for food, compete for water, compete for territory, that is where to stay, all right, a habitat. And then they equally compete for mating partners because they require mating partners in their reproduction. I hope you get that. Now, there are two types of competition. We have what is called the interspecific which is competition between similar species, okay, intraspecific, and we have what is called the interspecific, which is competition among dissimilar species. Yes. So take note, do not mix them up. The letter A here stands for adaptation. Okay, adaptation talks about the ability, all right, or the character of living things to survive harsh conditions within their environment. Okay, conditions such as extreme heat, extreme cold, okay, conditions such as lack of food, which we call famine, or lack of water, which we call drought. All these are extreme, unpalatable extremes within environments. And living things possess the ability to survive. Because if they lack what it takes to adapt, it means they would die suddenly. And if they die suddenly, it means it is only a matter of time before living things go into extinction. All right? So the reason why during extreme heat we wear lighter clothes, okay, that's adaptation. The reason why during extremely hot periods we take what we call cold water baths, that's adaptation. These are mechanisms that help us survive unpalatable extremes. Okay, so some of these adaptations are either behavioral or structural. Yes. So we have organisms that their method of adaptation is behavior. It's in the way they behave. All right. Then we have organisms that their method of adaptation is structural. They possess certain structures that help them survive. For example, the presence of a waxy cortical in plants is a structural adaptation, okay, to prevent loss of water or to prevent dryness. All right. The presence of dry scales on the body of reptiles is a structural adaptation to prevent desiccation, which is dryness, the loss of water. These are structural adaptations. Okay? Please take note of that. The last component we have here, the letter D, stands for death. All living things, whether plants or animals, must die. Okay? So I need you to go through these things that have been said. All right. And in the next video, which should be coming up in any moment from now, we're going to look at the main difference, that is these similarities between plants and animals. Thank you. All right, welcome back. Now, as you can see on the board, we're going to discuss the difference mainly between plants and animals. Okay, I know you've been wondering what difference is there between these two. All right, so let's get right to it. Okay, before we do that, if you have not seen the introductory video, please do well to watch it. All right, so that you can follow up on what we are doing here. All right, so we know from the previous video or previous class that plants and animals are the two main categories of living things. Okay, and for the sake of revision, let me mention here again that the branch of biology which studies plants is what we call botany, and the branch of biology which studies animals is what we call zoology. Okay, so let's see the difference between plants and animals. All right, and to understand this difference, we must look at them in line with the character of living things. Yes, which is the acronym Mr. Niger Card. Okay, but we may only be able to do this comparison with the first 7, which I told you are the main characters of living things, namely movement, respiration, okay, nutrition, sensitivity, also called irritability, growth, excretion, and then reproduction. Okay, now in the area of movement, okay, you must know that the main difference between plants and animals when it comes to movement is that while plants can only move about a fixed axis, okay, that is, their movement is fixed about an axis. Yes, because plants are stationary. Plants are planted. Yes. So their movement is only about an axis. All right. Just like when there is wind action, plants may tilt either to the left or to the right, or lean forwards or bend backwards. All right. But they are fixed. Okay. Animals, on the other hand, can carry out what we call locomotion. Okay. Animals locomote. That is to say, animals are not planted. Animals are not fixed in a place or in a particular spot. Animals can move from one place to another. Animals can cover distance. They can migrate. It is animals that carry out what we call a survival mechanism known as migration, migratory behavior. Animals can leave a place if the prevailing circumstances become unpalatable. They can actually change environments. But plants cannot because they are fixed. You get that now? Very good. Now, that is the first plane on which we will look at their difference. The second plane is in the area of respiration. Okay? In the area of respiration. All right? Now, plants and animals can both respire. True. Plants and animals can both respire. And this respiration involves oxygen. Okay? Remember I said respiration is the release of energy from food, okay, with the help of oxygen. The release of energy from food that has either been manufactured or taken in, all right, with the use of oxygen. Okay, so usually when respiration occurs in animals, all right, when we breathe in, what we take in is actually called air because air is a mixture of gases. So when we breathe in, we take in air, all right, but the component of the air that our body requires for respiration is oxygen. Okay, and then after all the respiratory processes and exchange of gases and what have you, the byproduct of respiration in animals is the carbon dioxide, which is called CO2. Okay, but in plants that carry out photosynthesis, it will interest you to know, please take note of this, it's vital, that in actively photosynthesizing plants, that is plants that are actively manufacturing their own food, they make use of carbon dioxide and then they release oxygen as a byproduct. You see that now? For humans or for animals, okay, let's put it in that category, our byproduct of respiration is carbon dioxide. But in plants, the byproduct is actually oxygen. Are you there now? Okay. Now, the third plane, okay, let me quickly write this here. Plants use CO2 and release oxygen as a byproduct. Animals use oxygen and release CO2 as a byproduct. You see that now? Excellent. Now, number 3, the third area where we are going to look at their differences or dissimilarities is in the area of nutrition. How do plants feed and how do animals feed? Come with me. Plants manufacture their own food. Yes, that is to say, they have the ability to produce their food. So plants do not necessarily need animals or plants for their food, at least not directly. Okay? So green plants, emphasis on green plants, all right, possess a certain component known as chlorophyll present in a structure called the chloroplast. Now, this chlorophyll is a greenish pigment, all right, that helps to trap light from the sun and then uses this light in the manufacture of food. Are we there? Excellent. Now, at this point, I will also need you to know that this food produced or consumed by plants are stored in the form of what we call starch. Okay, so plants store food. This food is mainly in the form of carbohydrates. Plants store carbohydrates as what we call starch. All right? That is why when you look at a plant cell critically, you find the presence of what we call starch grains. Okay? Like the paramylum granules in the euglena. The paramylum granules. These are starch grains. All right? So in a plant cell, you have presence of starch grains because plants store excess carbohydrate as starch. Are we there? Now, animals, on the other hand, store food or carbohydrates as what we call glycogen. This is another major difference between plants and animals. Plants store as starch, animals store as glycogen. Okay? Good. So, again, animals carry out heterotrophic nutrition, while plants carry out autotrophic. In heterotrophic nutrition, you do not make your own food. Rather, you depend on other organisms such as plants and other animals for your food. Okay? Now, it will interest you to know again that when we say heterotrophs, there are different modes of feeding in heterotrophic nutrition. All right, we have animals rather that are carnivorous. All right, these are animals that feed on flesh and blood. We have the animals that are herbivorous. They feed on shrubs, plants. Okay, we have animals that are omnivorous. These are animals that could either feed on plants or feed on other animals. Okay, an example is man. All right, now we have animals that are, we call them parasitic, okay? But parasitism in context is a form of relationship, all right? And we're going to look deeply into relationships when we talk about ecology. Yes, so parasitism is a form of relationship where one organism gains, and that organism gaining is called the parasite, and then another organism loses or suffers loss. That organism which suffers loss is called the prey, okay, also known as the host. All right, in parasitism, the organism is typically called the host because we have another form of relationship which is called predatorial relationship. Yes, all right, you find it between animals. A predator is a higher animal or an animal that is stronger in terms of strength, okay, or abilities or structurally, while a prey is a lower animal that is usually either not as strong as the predator or lacks certain defensive mechanism needed to protect themselves against a predator or a predator. All right, excellent. So that is the main difference between plants and animals when it comes to nutrition. Now, the next plane on which we will look at their difference is on the plane of sensitivity, which we also call irritability. Okay, now it will interest you to know that plants and animals respond to stimulus quite all right, but plants respond slower than animals. Okay, this is partly owing to the fact that plants do not possess a nervous system. Plants do not have a brain. Plants do not possess what we call nervous system. Okay, so your plant responds slowly to stimulus. Their response is very slow, but that of animals is much faster. Yes, okay. So in plants, we have what is called response to touch, okay, which we call thigmotropism. All right, response to touch. We have response to chemicals, chemotropism. We have response to water, hydrotropism. We have okay, and so on and so forth. Now, all of these responses, all right, prompt certain parts of plants to gravitate towards the source of that impulse or stimulus. For example, in hydrotropism, which is response to water in plants, all right, the roots of plants are positively hydrotropic. Yes, that is to say, when a plant detects the presence of water in its environment, it is the roots that move towards the water source. That's what we call hydrotropism. The roots migrate towards the water source or gravitate towards it. Okay? Excellent. So response in plants is slow, but response in animals is much faster. Excellent. Now, the next plane on which we will discuss the major difference between plants and animals is in the area of growth. Okay? Firstly here, I need you to know that plants grow throughout their lifetime. Yes, meaning that growth in plants is unending. It is without end. It continues throughout their lifetime. You have plants that can grow as high as 70, all right, 80 meters above ground level. Okay, so when we study ecology and biomes, we will learn of certain plants that are able to form what we call canopies. Yes, they have layers. All right, so plants can grow throughout their lifetime, but animals do not grow throughout their lifetime. So, in a nutshell, when it comes to growth, plants have an indefinite or eternal or continuous growth, or we simply say growth in plants is unlimited. All right, but growth in animals is limited. Yes, animals do not grow throughout their lifetime. Again, we have to also opine here that plants experience growth apically. Plants experience growth apically. Permit me to put that here. Growth in plants. Firstly, we said in plants, it is unlimited. And I just mentioned something that's, okay, unlimited and apical. Yes. Now, what does it mean to grow apically? It means plants experience growth at the apex or at the tip of certain parts. All right, such as the tip of roots, the tip of leaves. Okay. So these are the points where growth in plants take place. It is apical. Yes, apical is from the word apex. Yes, at the tip of roots or at the tip of leaves, okay, or at the tip of stems, growth takes place in plants. All right, but in animals, growth is not apical. Growth is cellular. Animals don't have leaves. Animals don't have roots. Animals don't have stems. If you're an animal and you are there, you have roots. You have to check yourself properly. It means there's a problem somewhere. Okay, so animals possess what we call cellular growth. All right, that is to say, growth in animals takes place in the cells. Yes, so the cells are actually growing, and that is how or why every other part of the animal increases also in size. Yes, because growth is cellular. All right, the next plane on which we are going to discuss the difference between plants and animals is in the area of excretion. Okay, now basically what you need to know here is, one, plants and animals can excrete. All right, so that's a similarity. They can excrete. But what makes their excretion different is that plants produce waste products that are harmless. Yes, so plant waste products or waste products in plants are not harmful. As a matter of fact, these waste products are useful in certain areas. All right, so we have waste products from plants like tannins. We have waste products from plants that are used in the manufacture of drugs. Yes, which doctors and medical practitioners administer to patients for proper health care. All right, but for animals, the waste products of animals are very harmful. Yes, they are very harmful. Okay, and they need to be removed from the body via what we call excretory structures or excretory organelles. Okay, excellent. Now, the last plane on which plants and animals differ is the plane of reproduction. Okay, so animals, we carry out sexual reproduction, or asexual reproduction, like in animals, just like the Hydra fusca. Okay, they can carry out reproduction sexually or asexually. All right, asexually, the Hydra will reproduce via what we call budding. It's a reproductive process. All right, and budding entails the outgrowth, all right, of the offspring. Yes, it's like an outgrowth called the bud, bud. All right, and budding is of two types: the internal budding and the external budding. Internal budding is harmful, okay, while the external budding is usually uninimical, meaning harmless. All right, so plants basically carry out reproduction asexually, or by what we call vegetative propagation. Yes, which is the use of seeds. They produce seeds, like the mango plant produces seeds. Yes, so we can get another mango plant by planting a mango seed. That's a vegetative part. So seeds are vegetative parts. Stems are vegetative parts. Okay, so we have plants that we can produce by using their stem. Yes, stem tubers to propagate them. That's what we call vegetative propagation. Okay, excellent. So other plants make use of artificial vegetative propagation like marcotting, layering, and what we call grafting. Okay, so that's that. Now, I believe with these few points, it is clear that although plants and animals are similar, all right, in terms of their characteristics, okay, they can move, respire, carry out nutrition, respond to stimulus, grow, excrete, reproduce, compete, adapt, and even die. Okay, but aside this, we must know that they do these activities differently. All right, so let's run a quick recap. We said in terms of movement, plants move a part of their body, animals can move a part or the whole. We said plants are fixed about an axis because they are planted, and by means of their roots, they are strongly attached to the ground, to the soil, or to the earth. All right. Now, in animals go beyond movement. They can carry out what we call locomotion, and these animals are not fixed about an axis. In line with respiration, plants use CO2 and release oxygen as a waste product, while animals use oxygen and release carbon dioxide, which is CO2, as a waste product. You see that now? In line with nutrition, plants will store their food, their carbohydrates, which they manufacture as starch. But animals, after eating, remember animals are heterotrophs. They don't make their food. But after eating, animals store excess carbohydrates as glycogen. All right? Now, in terms of sensitivity, remember that response or irritability in plants is very slow. All right? And I told you the various ways, okay, that it happens. Yes, we have what is called tropism, we have what is called taxism, we have what is called nastic movement. All right? Some of these equally happen in animals. Okay? Now, in terms of growth, plants grow without limits. That is, their growth is unlimited, but the growth of animals is limited. Plants grow throughout their life, animals grow for a certain duration and then they stop growing. Growth in plants is equally apical, occurs at the tip of roots, stems, or leaves, while growth in animals is cellular. It takes place within cells. Okay? Remember also that sensitivity in animals is faster than in plants. All right? Don't forget that in terms of excretion, animals produce more harmful waste products than plants. Okay? And as a matter of fact, the waste products of plants are harmless and can be used in other areas, just like I mentioned in medicine. Yes, in medicine. Okay? Now, in terms of reproduction, plants reproduce by vegetative parts, what we call vegetative propagation, and animals reproduce either sexually or asexually. All right? So, thank you very much. The next video that will be coming up is going to be on the usefulness of biology and the applications of biology and also the branches of biology. Do not stop watching. Okay, so welcome back. Um, this is the last aspect of our class on the introduction to biology. Okay, so already from the outline of this video, we have seen the definition of biology. We have equally seen um, the character of living things, what we call characteristics of living things, and then um, we have equally seen the difference between plants and animals. So perhaps you somehow find yourself at this point of the teaching or the video and you do not know these things I just mentioned. Kindly rewind so you can get acquainted with them. All right, so let's get right down to business. The branches of biology. Okay, so just like every field in the sciences, all right, biology has branches. Yes. Okay, now as you can see on the board, there are three main branches of biology. Okay, by three main, I mean three divisions. We have what is called the main branch or the main branches. Okay, these are the most important branches of biology. Okay, we have the specialized branches, all right, which involve specific studies of things, okay, within the confines of biology as the science of life. Then lastly, we have what is called emerging or modern branches, that is new branches of biology. Modern means new, current. Okay, let's take a quick look at them or some of them, if not all. Okay, under the main branches, we have branches like zoology, which is the study of animals. It is the scientific study of animals. So, zoology is the branch of biology that studies animals. And a person who studied or studies zoology is said to be a zoologist. Okay, now a botanist, on the other hand, is a person who studied botany. Now, what is botany? Botany is the branch of biology that is strictly related to the study of plants. All right. Now, you should also know at this point that animals usually possess what we call zoological names, while plants possess what we call botanical names. The third main branch we have here is microbiology, which is the branch of biology that studies microorganisms such as your virus, your bacteria, pathogens, and so on and so forth. We have anatomy. All right, this is the branch of biology that studies the internal and external structure of the body. Internal and external structure of the body. It's termed an anatomy. Okay, now one who studied anatomy is called an anatomist. One who studied microbiology is called a microbiologist. Now, it will interest you also to know that most of these main branches of biology are actually fields of study in the sciences. Yes, a person can train in a university as a zoologist. That is one reading a course we call animal science. All right. In some universities, it is called AEB, which is Animal and Environmental Biology. All right. Now, we have another main branch known as physiology. Physiology is simply the study of the function, yes, of cells and structures that are within the body. Okay, so this is just a branch of biology that studies the functionality of cells. Okay, now ecology is the study of animals in relationship with their environment. Yes. So in ecology, we do not just study animals; we equally look at their intrinsic uh, 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 um, their intrinsic relationship to their environment, okay, which goes beyond just the kind of animals we find in an environment, okay, and onto things like interactions. Yes, the relationship between or amongst these animals, all right, and how the activities of these animals impact the environment and also impact one another. Excellent. Now we have a branch of biology known as genetics, which is the scientific study of how traits are transferred from parent to offspring or from one generation to another. All right, so it's called genetics, is the study of how hereditary traits are transferred. Now we have embryology, which is the study of the embryo, okay, all right, from the point of fertilization to the point of birth. That's embryology. Then we have what is called biochemistry. It is simply the branch of biology that studies what we call chemical pathways. Yes, that is the processes involved in certain cellular activities that happen in living things. All right. So just like we have the biochemistry of the Calvin cycle, the biochemistry of certain activities carried out by plants and animals. Okay, so the branch of biology that studies the pathways, how these things come to be, how these things take place, we call it biochemistry. All right. Now, there are others. These are not the only main branches that exist. So, let's come to the specialized branches. All right. The first branch we have here is virology. All right. And virology is the branch of biology that studies viruses specifically. It studies viruses. Mycology studies fungi. It is a branch of biology that studies fungi. Immunology is the specialized branch of biology that studies the immune system. Okay, biotechnology is a branch of biology where technological processes are used, okay, to harness certain biological materials and transform them into goods or services to improve the quality of life of other things such as crop yield. Okay, now we have paleontology. This is the study of fossils, okay, and life forms. That's paleontology, the study of fossils and life forms. We have molecular biology. This is the study of certain molecules in biology, molecules like the DNA, the RNA, and proteins. Okay, so we study them under molecular biology. Marine biology, on the other hand, is simply the branch of biology that studies marine organisms. Okay, marine meaning salt water. So, organisms present in salt waters like seas and oceans, the branch of biology that studies such organisms is known as marine biology. And lastly, we have environmental biology, okay, which is simply the branch of biology that studies our environment and all the activities that take place within the environment. Excellent. Now we have the last branch of biology, which is the emerging or the modern branches. So under this branch, we have fields like genomics, which is the study of genomes. Okay, that is complete DNA sets. That's what we call a genome. We have bioinformatics. Okay, here what happens in this branch is that certain mathematical and statistical tools, okay, are utilized in um, conducting biological experiments or in handling biological data. All right, that's what we call bioinformatics. We use statistical tools to analyze biological data. Okay, it could be experimental data or what have you. Now we have astrobiology. This is the branch of biology that tries or is geared towards proving the existence of life beyond the earth. Yes. So astrobiology, from the word astro is from the word astral, which means space. So astrobiology is a branch of biology that is charged with the responsibility of studying life outside of our very terrestrial ball, which is the Earth. Okay, now the next branch we have is proteomics. This is simply the branch of biology that studies proteins. Okay, and lastly here we have nanobiology. Okay, this is the branch of biology that employs the use of what we call nanotechnology. All right, so I hope with these few illustrations we have been able to understand or grasp the concept of what biology is as the study of life. Okay, this is an interesting subject or field of life, very important, because biology is all around us, from the air we breathe to the water we drink, okay, to the very processes that take place within our bodies. All right, and these processes generate changes that we see in time. Okay, as each living thing, all right, is in the process of evolving. Yes, so biology is not abstract. It is actually, as a matter of fact, it is palpable. You can see it, you can touch it, and you can feel it. All right? And over here at Covenant Science Tutorial, it is our duty and our utmost pleasure to make you come face to face with the sciences. All right? The sciences is a lovely field to be in. It is not a mystery. Okay? So we have tutors here who are armed to the teeth to equip you with impeccable knowledge on your science subjects, ranging from mathematics to physics to chemistry to biology, okay, and even the use of English, which is a general subject for all students in any sphere of human endeavor. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, it's going to be a wrap. Okay, if you have not subscribed to our channel, please do so and recommend this video to others who may be having similar academic needs just like you. Until next time, it's goodbye from here. I remain your favorite biology instructor. I'll see you next time. Ciao.